Good evening, everyone. It is March 18th. I want to make sure everybody's at the right Zoom with all the Zooms going on. So let's just make sure this is the DPW site housing initiative. This is number 6 in a series of 6 sessions. It's the last one, lovingly called You Should Live Here, basically. I'm paraphrasing. The topic is really I want to say a couple of things about it. Number one, it's the last in a series of 6, which means you have every opportunity to go back and look at the first 5. We did them in 6 sessions, different topics in each sessions: environmental issues, financial issues, school issues. School Me was my favorite headline. Thank you, Maddie. I actually recommend, if you want to look at them in order, would be great. But if one topic speaks to you louder than another, just choose a topic that you like. There will be a presentation done, a short presentation. The more we do these, the shorter they get. It's really wonderful. We get better and better at this. And this one is about a question that has frequently been asked about this particular initiative, which is on the waterfront, is how do I win the lottery? How do I get to live in what looks like a beautiful housing complex on the waterfront, close to the train, close to lots of stuff? And is it really just for Ossining folks? Is it for anybody, et cetera, et cetera? Those are two of the questions that we get a lot, and we're hoping to answer that today. And this will be the last of the public sessions. It doesn't mean the conversation stops here. We know there are a lot of conflicting Zooms going on tonight. That's okay. The beauty of all of this is you've got a lot of wonderful people from staff, from the developer, and a couple of the trustees as always, and to answer questions that you might have. And if you want to share it with your friends and neighbors, we encourage that. And we will post this, and then more and more people will be able to watch it now, a year from now, et cetera, et cetera. So I encourage you to even now text some of your friends if you think they'd be interested in this. The topic tonight may be about how do I get to live here, but it's really more about also asking any other questions that you have. Don't feel inhibited by the topic. Feel free to ask, comment, give us insights. We've actually learned a lot on these sessions from members of our community who had some sort of different ideas about what we should look at. There's going to be a small presentation. Karen Diatori, our village manager, will conduct. She's the mistress of ceremony tonight. She will be conducting the presentation, then bringing people on as needed. As we finish the presentation, for the Q&A part, just raise your hand on Zoom if you want to comment or ask questions, and feel free to ask as many as you want. So I'm going to turn this over now to Karen Diatori, who, if I forgot to say something, will fill in the blanks. Village manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I think that you covered everything. We are going to start our presentation. So tonight, as the mayor said, we'll be telling you about what the application process looks like, a little bit more detail on what the amenities are. But we also have tonight, we have Terry Fleischman from the Housing Action Council, who represents one of our foremost affordable housing nonprofits, who will be here to talk. Terry's worked on leasing up these types of projects for a long time and has great experience. And we also have Gary Friedland from Wilder Balter, who covers property management for the building. So we'll have a lot of people who can answer all questions you may have. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Mandy Sahaj to start the presentation, and we will be on our way.
Okay. Can everyone see the screen? Okay, thank you. Good evening, Mayor, trustees, everyone who's viewing. So as the mayor mentioned, tonight's topic is if you lived here, you'd be home by now. So we're going to sort of start with a little bit of a review of sort of where we've been, the site history, what the proposed development is that we're talking about, what the benefits could potentially be to the community at large, and then we're going to talk about the application process. So jumping into the site history, For those who are not familiar with the site, it is about a 3.4-acre site, which is bounded by Water Street, Main Street, Secor Road, and Central Avenue, down near the waterfront in the village on the east side of the train tracks. And then from east to west, the site is traversed by the Sing Sing Kill, which we'll hear more about in a little bit. The site is a contaminated brownfield site. It was used as a coal gas plant from the 1850s, the 1850s to the 1940s. And as Con Edison was a prior owner who was responsible for part of that contamination, the site is subject to a consent order by the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, or the DEC. And this, thanks to our historian, our former historian, I believe, Trustee White, you can see what the site used to look like. Here's Main Street coming down, and here's the site right in the middle here. We did a drone video that's voiced over by village engineer Paul Fraioli. So I'm going to play that for you now, which sort of gives an idea of the depth of the site, and you can kind of see where the site is placed in the Station Plaza neighborhood.
30 Water Street. This 3.4-acre parcel, consisting of 5 separate tax parcels in the village of Ossining, is the former home of the village's DPW facility. It is now primarily used as a transfer facility for organic waste, seen there at the right of the video, and other recyclable or materials used in DPW operations. It is bordered by Water Street on the western boundary, Central Avenue on the northern boundary, and Lower Main Street on the southern boundary of the parcel. Once completed, approximately 1.5 acres of green space will remain on the eastern portion of the property, connected to Water Street through a park being constructed along the Kilbrook Trail, extending up through the green portion of the parcel on the easternmost portions to connect pedestrians to the village's Riverwalk, southern connection off of Central Avenue. Access to Lower Main Street, as well as access to the village's Kilbrook Riverwalk, will be an asset this parcel offers, in addition to the affordable and workforce housing component.
All right, so moving right along, I'm going to sort of move back to where we began our engagement series, which is to ask why here and why this. So we're going to talk about the proposed development. Currently, the proposed development includes a mixed-use building with 109 residential units with a range of affordability from between 30 and 80% of area median income, which we'll discuss further in a couple minutes. As you just heard in the video, the extension of the Sing Sing Hill Greenway through to Water Street is part of the proposed development, as well as a parking garage for residents with potential for an additional layer for municipal parking to be built by the developer. And this is sort of a site map. So again, what you saw in the video, this is the existing Sing Sing Hill Greenway going back to the community center. This would be the added extension coming through the site to Water Street. And it also shows the proximity to the Ossining train station. So it would be really exciting to be able to complete this trail, as it would connect the community center with our waterfront neighborhood. So speaking about the affordability in the building, as I mentioned, the current proposal contemplates 109 residential units with that range of affordability from between 30 and 80% AMI. And here's sort of the breakdown that's currently being proposed. So what is area median income? It's determined by a set of federally mandated rules. The area median income for Ossining is based on the Westchester County AMI numbers, which you can see below here. So as you can see, it's based on household size between 1 and 6 persons. And then here are the various limits of AMI. So at 100% of area median income is this column here. The Ossining median income is around $70,177. And as you can see here at the bottom, this is just an idea, nothing set in stone, but an idea of what the rents in the proposed development might look like for studios and 1 bedrooms, or excuse me, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and 3 bedrooms. Talking about the unit layout, here are some renderings of what the proposed building might look like. You can see here, this is the view from Water Street. On the right-hand side would be the residential component, as well as the retail and community space on the bottom. And then this building on the other side of the hill here would be the parking structure with, again, potentially the municipal parking right on the top. And this is sort of a cross-section view looking down Main Street. If you're familiar, this is the little red house at where Main Street and Secor split. So you can see the building sort of nestles into that rock face there that you saw in the video. So even though the building, is 6 stories at one point, you can see that it doesn't really go above the roof of that little red house. And speaking about affordable housing in the village, generally speaking, looking back at the 2017 housing needs assessment that was performed for the village, we discovered that over 59% of renters in the village of Ossining are cost burdened, which means they spend greater than 30% of their income on rent. Of that 59%, 33% of those residents were severely cost burdened, which means they spend greater than 50% of their income on rent. Looking at the commercial and community space, we'll zoom in on this in a second. The ground floor layout incorporates the retail space to sort of activate that corridor along Water Street. And then in the back of the site would be roughly 4,000 square feet of community space, which could potentially be used by the Ossining School District as flexible learning for distance learning. So you can see here, again, this is Water Street. And so folks would be able to enter in this way to check out the retail, and then would be able to walk through the site to visit the community space, and then potentially traverse the Sing Sing Hill by a footpath to go further back on the site. As far as public amenities, we talked about the extension of the Sing Sing Hill Greenway and the linear park. There's also consideration of a public elevator or staircase coming off of Main Street to connect Water Street with our downtown. And then, as we mentioned, the separate parking structure would have parking for residents and then parking for the neighborhood as well. In-unit amenities, some things that would be available to folks who lived in the building: tenant-controlled heating and cooling in each unit, ownership-paid utilities, including electricity, washer-dryer hookups in each unit, but then there would also be a central washer-dryer room if the tenants decided they didn't want to bring in their own washer and dryer, a full appliance package, an intercom communication system, and privacy blinds. So now we want to look at the added community benefit. The developer has proposed making all of these improvements, which by Wilder Balcher's estimate would come to about $8.6 million. Including $4.5 million for the brownfield remediation, about $2.5 million for the Sing Sing Hill Greenway extension, about $1.5 million for the municipal parking level, in addition to offering up that community space, which again could be used by the Ossining School District. In the absence of the developer's investment in this way, these improvements would either never happen or would come out of the pockets of taxpayers. To speak a little bit more about some of these added site improvements, I'm going to turn it over to Jack Durkin of Wilder Balcher, who's going to walk us through some of these drawings and renderings and talk a little bit more about what the site may actually look like once developed.
All right. Thank you, Maddie. My name is Jack Durkin. I work with Wilder Balcher Partners. I've been working with Bill and Gary on this project and the village for well over a year now. And I wanted to talk about a few aspects of the site. So if we could go to the next slide, we saw this earlier. Maddie spoke a little bit about it, but as you can see, we really wanted to turn this site into the gateway from the village aspect of, Ossining down to the waterfront. So we wanted to create an easy transition from the higher elevation of the village down to the lower elevation of the waterfront. As you can see on the map here, the site is a 3 to 5 minute walk from the train station, and the proposed public greenway extension encompasses the forestry aspect of the site that we wanted to maintain, as a large portion of the site now is already currently forestry. It's obviously then concluded in our linear park where the public can enjoy many of the outdoor retail and amenity components of the site that we are proposing. So if we go to the next slide, the development, the major development portion of the site is located on the western end, closest to Water Street. All of the parking is located on the northern side of the Sing Sing Kill brook, and the residential, retail, and community space is located on the southern side, with a connecting bridge between the two buildings that makes for a seamless transition between the two, and really creating that linear park that we're trying to bring the public into. If you take a look at the residential building, the building terraces up from Water Street and sets back into the hill, as Maddie said earlier. That creates 2 private terraces for the residents of the building to enjoy. That'll be included in the amenities of the building. And as you can see, we have solar panels on our roof that will contribute to a good portion of the energy usage of the building. The next slide is the ground floor plan. Again, it shows the 2 buildings that face in on each other. We placed all the public amenities and the community space fronting the linear park. This allows the public usage to almost activate the linear park aspect of the development, and kind of creates an inviting and open space feel that we really want to promote and bring people into the site. If you take a look, the positioning of the spaces, the retail is closest to Water Street. That kind of invites people in, and then it transitions to the amenity and the lobby space, and then farthest in on the site is the community space. And we put that there for more of a specific reason, and that's going to be a very heavily used portion of the development, and we put it in the back so it brings a majority of the people as far into the site as possible, and kind of creating a good community feel that we want to transform this site into. So if we go to the next slide, there's some before and after renderings, and keep in mind these are all early, very early on renderings. They're very preliminary, but if we take a look at the first photo, this is currently, or this was taken back in the fall. This is what the site currently looks like right now. So where this photo was taken, you're standing on the corner of Water Street and Central Ave, looking at the existing DPW building. The Sing Sing Kill brook is almost directly on the other side of it, and it flows through the site and actually underneath Water Street. And then on the other side of the kill will be where the residential building will be located. So if we go to the next slide, this is kind of transformative on what the site would look like if you were standing in the same place as that of that previous photo. The parking garage is in a similar location to the existing DPW building. If you take a look past the parking garage, we have newly reinforced canal walls between the 2 buildings that kind of creates a more centralized location of the brook. And then the residential building is obviously on the other side. And as you can see, there's a very inviting ground floor to bring you into the retail and lobby and the community space portion of the building. The next slide is if you're standing at the main entrance of the DPW yard right now, as you can see, The garage is on the left. The canal is right there in the center of the photo. And then on the right is the current transfer station for the DPW yard. If you go to the next slide, this would be taken from the same view looking into the site down the linear park. As you can see, we are going to rebuild the retaining walls on the side of the brook, and it really cleans it up and makes it a little bit better on the eyes for people that are going to be in the site. It creates an accessible access point from Water Street that kind of pulls you into the site. From this point of view, the retail is directly on your right, and then as you work your way in, you go through the amenities, lobby, and community. The next slide is the current DPW transfer yard. It's the most open portion of the site right now. From where this photo is taken, the Sing Sing Kill Brook is directly behind me. This is, like I said, the most open portion of the site and where the main part of the residential building will be located. So if we go to the next slide, it's from a point of view that's just located a little bit further into the site. As you can see on your right is the main entrance to the lobby and the amenity space. And then if you look a little bit farther down where that glass portion of the building jumps out a little bit, that is the community space. And if you look really far into the back, that is the end of the proposed Sing Sing Kill extension. So as we start to talk about that, we'll go to the next slide. And this is the current natural landscape if you were standing right outside of the community space in the proposed building. As you can see in the back, is the current Central Ave archway that goes underneath Central Ave, and right on the other side of that archway is the ending point of the current Sing Sing Kill Greenway, which, like I said, we're going to be extending. So if we go to the next slide, we can take a look at the extension. It goes underneath the archway and traverses down the Sing Sing Kill Brook, and it concludes right in the end of our linear park. This is to us, one of the more exciting aspects of the development because it really creates a very strong community benefit to the village that, like I said earlier, transition from the village down to the waterfront. So with that, I just wanted to go to the next slide. Next slide here. I'm going to go over two of our developments. One is current, that is being occupied and used, and the other one is under construction. This is Trapacaw Crossing. Many of you may recognize this building as the iconic Reader's Digest headquarters, also known as the Cupola Building. This development serves both market rate and mixed income families, we turn the historic building into 64 rental apartments. Its mixed income rents range from 40% to 90% of the Westchester area median income. If we go to the next slide, it just shows a drone shot. This is taken directly behind the drone right now is the Sawmill River Parkway. Obviously, you can see a better portion of the building, and then behind it is the complex where there's a Whole Foods and a gym and parking spaces for the public and the residents. The next photo is just another view of the building. As you can see, we have a courtyard out front of the building. This is taken on the other side, so now the Sawmill River Parkway is behind it. We have a great courtyard for the public and our residents to enjoy when the weather's nice. The next slide is 645 Main Street. This is located in Peekskill, New York, and is currently under construction. We took a blighted site that was underutilized, very similar to Ossining, and we're constructing 82 affordable rental apartments. This development will serve 100% affordable, 40 to 80% of the Westchester area median income. Similar to Ossining, this site is also a brownfield site, achieving track 1 and track 4 track 4 cleanup. And the design criteria of the building includes LEED for Homes Gold and Energy Star, which basically makes the building extremely tight and highly efficient, which we aim for in all of our new developments. Ossining will be the same way. So if we go to the first rendering, just shows a different view of the building taken from Main Street. From Main Street, there's only 3 residential floors. And if you go to the next slide, it's a drone shot taken from Central Ave. As you can see, there's a huge grade change in the site, and we take advantage of that, similar to what we're doing in Ossining. And we're creating 3 levels of parking underneath 4 levels of the residential portion of the building. Similar to Ossining, we have a green space for the residents to enjoy, and on the roof will be 100% solar. So it's a very green building. So with that, I'll hand it back over to Maddie, and I appreciate everyone's time.
Okay, thanks, Jack.
No problem.
So I want to talk quickly about the proposed pilot, which is a payment in lieu of taxes that's been proposed for the development. Currently, as the property is owned by the Village of Ossining, it is not on the tax rolls, which means it's generating no tax revenue today. As an all affordable development, the revenue would be constrained by the rent roll. So even in the absence of a pilot, the estimated annual tax bill for this kind of an affordable development as proposed would be lower than a similarly constructed market rate development. However, while the proposed pilot is still under review and is going to require some negotiation between the village and the developer, the final number is anticipated to be roughly 70% of what the developer would pay if the property were to be fully taxed. The pilot would also include a built-in cost escalator to ensure the annual payments to the village, the town, and the school increased with a rate similar to or higher than the consumer price index. And right now, we're looking at about 2.5% annual increase. So what does that mean? The anticipated pilot revenues, you can see here, again, sort of a jumping off point, nothing set in stone. So the proposed pilot in year 1 would be about $228,900 as compared to what the property tax revenues might be if the building were fully taxed based on what the town assessor has projected the property would be worth. A pilot on the site actually adds revenue to each taxing jurisdiction's annual budget because it's new money. Remember that the property is not on the tax roll currently. So the same development without a pilot would simply disperse the tax levy over a wider pool of assessment. This is actually new money being injected into the budgets of the village, town, and school district. And finally, the pilot duration. The developers indicated the need for a 30-year pilot to align with the types of financing required. However, the retail component of the building will not be subject to the pilot. Over the once the 30 years have elapsed, the building will be added to the tax roll and will be treated like any other commercial property where it will be assessed based on the income and expenses. Over the course of the 30-year pilot, the development is expected to generate over $10 million for the various taxing entities involved, inclusive of the annual payment escalator. I'm going to now turn it over to Village Manager Karen DeTore, who is going to talk a little bit about the application process for the development.
Thank you, Maddie. So you want to apply an affirmative. So we'll talk a little bit about how we're going to market this building so that you'll know when it's time to apply. We're still probably some time away from that. But an affirmative fair housing marketing plan will be created to let potential tenants know that these rental units are available once the project is completed. The purpose of the plan is to reduce segregation and encourage integration in housing by promoting housing choice and opportunities regardless of one's protected characteristics under federal and state housing laws. So what does that mean? This really talks about the Fair Housing Act. So and if you want to just forward, yeah. So the Federal Fair Housing Act states that a person may not be discriminated against. And this is true for all housing because of their race, color, religion, national origin, sex, disability, or familial status, including families with minor children, pregnant women, and adults in the process of obtaining custody of their minor child. In addition, the New York State Human Rights Law provides additional protection based on age, marital status, military status, sexual orientation, gender identity, and lawful source of income. So this means that you may have other subsidies through maybe a housing choice voucher that contribute to your income. This would not disqualify you provided you fell into the income requirements based on the AMI that are identified for the unit you'd be applying for. So the affirmative marketing requires developers to engage in targeting people who are least likely to apply. So this makes sure that you really are ensuring that there is no discrimination in the housing market. And so there's a lot of work done to make sure that people are aware of the available affordable housing opportunities. And this requirement applies to all multifamily housing that receives funding through the Housing Finance Agency, the Housing Trust Fund Corporation, and the Division of Housing and Community Renewal at New York State. And this is a building that will receive such funding, so it's going to be important that it's marketed broadly, again, to make sure people who need the housing and are eligible to housing know about the housing. In addition to that, we will be marketing this building heavily in Ossining. And we have a lot of resources and ability to get the word out to people in Ossining who will need this housing, who would potentially qualify for this housing. And we'll be working closely with our housing voucher program, which has a fairly extensive list, and we'll be able to make sure that people who would qualify based on their income levels will know about this and will be able to apply. So that's another important feature, because we do want Ossining residents who will benefit from this building or could benefit from it to know about it. So that'll all be part of the marketing initiative. And how will this work? So the initial tenant selection process for this type of building must be made on a random basis through the use of a lottery system. So this wouldn't be first come, first serve. It would be by use of a lottery basis. And a lottery is will be conducted by independent third-party affordable housing nonprofit. And we have Terry Fleischman here tonight to answer any questions you may have. She's from the Housing Action Council, and they've administered many, many, many lotteries for programs like these over the years. People will be able to apply for the lottery by a stated deadline. That deadline will be publicized. People will be encouraged to apply. And once that deadline is met, then the lottery will start. But the application process, when you apply for the lottery, you'll be asked to include personal information for yourself and members of your family, your household, as well as verification of your income. And there'll be other questions too, but it's a pretty straightforward process. If you are selected and you meet all the necessary qualifications, you will then be eligible to get an apartment, and you'll be able, at that point, if you decide you want one, you will be eligible and you will be able to move in. If you decide, I got something else, or this isn't really for me, you will not be obligated to move in, and the lottery will move into the next person on the list. So that takes us through the presentation. So now we come to the part where you can ask questions. We don't have a lot of people here tonight, but again, this will be videotaped. So who's ever here, you can tell your friends to view the link on, or view the video rather. And again, you can always contact us. So we have the project timeline. We don't have dates yet. We're working on that, but we have selected the preferred developer. That's Wilder Balter Associates. Right now we're in the public engagement phase, and we will be developing a land acquisition disposition agreement, which is called a LADA, which is an agreement between the village and the developer. Then there's a pretty intense environmental review and site plan approval by the planning board. The environmental advocacy advisory council will be involved in looking at this project as it goes forward. And the board will be involved in issuing special permits and implementing the LADA agreement. So Again, this is the sixth. This is a series of six. We're in the final season right now. Please, these are all on our website. You can get them there's also a specific subsite, ossiningdpwsite.com, and we don't have subsequent meetings coming on this. Again, this is our final one. But again, everything's viewable online and you can reach us anytime. The website will give you the phone number and the emails to contact us about the site. So thank you. And now we want to hear from you. If anybody here tonight has any questions, we're going to turn it over to our audience.
As folks are finding the raise your hand icon on Zoom, I want to thank the staff for putting this together. All of these, this is truly the high watermark for public engagement with any kind of project that we've had here in the village. And so I want to thank Maddie and Jaime and Karen and Jamie and Stuart on the village side. I'm sure I'm forgetting people. My colleagues on the board, our friends at Wilder Balter Associates, because it's a lot of behind the scenes work that makes something like this happen so smoothly. I also want to emphasize on the board side our level of excitement over this project. This truly is the cornerstone of what we see the waterfront revitalization becoming. Like, this can do a lot to really turn a space in our village, which has historically been an African-American community, and restore it to a place that is even bigger and better than it was before. In the last year and some change, when we've had so much tough news, it's really one of the things that has me most grateful for being in this position that I'm in, working with all of my colleagues here to work for a better Ossining. And this is how you do it. It's through projects like this that create opportunities for people to not just find somewhere to live, but these kind of affordable housing options have downstream effects that really have big impacts on our community. They affect the education quality that our students have. They affect the local businesses. They affect the environment. They affect the way of life of everyone here in the village. Will have better access to the Greenway and Main Street. And so this is a big deal. And as we kind of go through each one of these steps, I never want to lose sight of how big of a difference this will make once it's up and running.
Thank you, Trustee Lopez. We are indeed excited. So I see we have a few people in our audience tonight. Does anybody have any questions? Please feel free to raise your hand, and we will be happy to answer any questions you might have.
There's also a Q&A box if you wanted to ask your question anonymously.
If nobody has any questions, like, we're all yours tonight. This is a really concierge presentation. So if you have any questions, we've got everybody here. So now's the time. But it doesn't look like anybody has any questions. Seeing no questions, I want to thank everybody for coming this evening. And again, we will
Karen,
be
wait,
promoting,
you have,
oh, wait, we have a Q&A.
You have a Q&A. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Okay. Okay, this is from will Wilder Balter manage the property over the next 30 years? So Mr. Friedland, I am going to turn this over to you to talk about the management process that Wilder Balter has.
Thank you. I'm Gary Friedland. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Wilder Balter. I want to thank the mayor, the trustees, and the village staff for this opportunity. We are an integrated company. We're a developer, a general contractor, and a property management company. It's all the same ownership. It's all Bill Balter. And we manage all of the affordable communities that we built. And we're managing properties that Bob Wilder, who's Bill's partner, developed over 30 years ago. Part of being in the affordable housing business is that we have sources of money that come into these properties. And we have to deliver a whole lot of things, a good product, quality, compliance, and we typically manage them forever. All of the affordable developments that we currently manage were developed by our company, or Bob Wilder before he met Bill Walter 30 years ago, to give you an idea of the longevity of them. So all of them are managed by us. We don't do any third-party management for other people, and we don't have any third parties manage our properties.
Thank you for that answer. Any other questions? You can feel free to type them in, or you can raise your hand and we'll bring you over and you can ask them. Okay, with that, I think we're going to.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was just there was another piece to the question.
Okay. Thank you. One of the more interesting ideas is an elevator connect between the town and the train. Can you give us more on that? So an elevator is a consideration in this building, or a staircase. Jack, maybe you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. As I said earlier, everything is definitely in a preliminary design, so we don't have any idea of where it's going to be located or anything like that is involved in the site. But as I pointed on during as we went through the renderings, our main objective is to connect the village to the waterfront, and as every resident of Ossining knows, there is a drastic grade change, and sometimes walking down or up Main Street can be a little tiring. So one of the main aspects that we wanted to include in the site was to make that walk easier. And one of those things is a public elevator. So as we get further into development and the plans and drawings, more details will be released on the details of the elevator. But for now, that's kind of the main motive behind it.
Great, thank you so much. Any additional questions? Feel free. I'll give a couple minutes if we're typing. I
think you're in good shape, Karen.
Okay, with that, I think that I want to thank everybody who's here tonight. Thank the people who joined us. Again, we know that lots of people watch these videos, so if anybody watching out there has questions, please contact us. The information is on the site of how to contact about if you have any questions about this project. And again, thank you, Terry Fleischman. Thank you, Gary and Jack from Wilder Bolter, and to my colleagues and the board members, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Good night.